Back to Toyota Sports Talk. Joining us now, Jake Russell with the Washington Post. Does a great job covering all things Washington sports, especially the Commanders and Nats. Jake, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you. Let's start with those Commanders, shall we? Because we were just talking about how it feels like the offseason has been so long for this team now that football relatively just ended. It's been a busy offseason, though, in terms of all of these new hires, head coach, from assistant coaches to coordinators. I want your thoughts on just kind of the overall last few months. How have they been for this team?
So I think the team did not obviously get the coach that the fans wanted. So they went with a guy they ultimately liked and were impressed by with Dan Quinn. His better experience, his reputation around the league seems pretty impeccable. And the coaching staff he's assembled so far is, I think, one of the better ones in the league. That might be me in a few months, in the fall and in the winter. I might be putting my foot in my mouth saying, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. The players aren't playing up to snuff with the coaching standards. We'll see. But I think what he's done so far is assemble a really good staff that I don't know Ben Johnson could have put together. One of the things I like about it the most is a lot of those guys have worked in higher jobs than what they're in now. So what they're doing is taking a step down, but they still have the knowledge and the expertise to kind of hone in and fine tune their work. And I think that's going to be a net positive going in for a team that's likely going to have a young rookie quarterback to start the season. That's going to help a lot with this roster.
Yeah, and I just, based on just kind of the coaching hires itself, just how interesting is that to have so many coaches? This was a well thought out process, but it was also a very
Mm-hmm.
quick process too. And you look at kind of the talent of all of these guys now in the room, like you mentioned, coming from kind of bigger jobs and now getting to kind of hone their craft at a smaller level, a more
Mm-hmm.
specific level. How important is that for a team that really needs help in probably every aspect right now?
Yeah, it is. And I believe the coaches have said, like Dan Quinn and Joe Witt and Kingsbury, I believe they've said to a certain point, bringing in coaches with different experience, different viewpoints was intentional. So that, who knows if that'll create a too many cooks in the kitchen scenario this year and they don't gel together. That's probably one thing to look out for. And so it'll be interesting to see if they all actually come together, and come to an agreement on, okay, we'll blend your style of coaching with my style, and this is how the players will play based on the overall arching view of how we coach. We'll see how that goes going forward. But the veteran experience that these guys have, like, they're not they're not nobodies. You get Larry Izzo on special teams, Ken Norton Jr. the linebackers coach, and you got Cliff Kingsbury, not a head coach anymore. He's an offensive coordinator. He just has to focus on the offensive side of the ball. You got Anthony Lynn coming to help as a running back coach and running game coordinator. Him and Kingsbury, their relationship is going to be very important, with blending the pass game and the run game and trying to make it the most balanced, effective offense possible. I feel like it's going to be a very interesting off season in terms of practices and training camp and then preseason to see how these players react to this type of veteran coaching and veteran leadership.
So you're pretty confident they're going to be drafting a rookie quarterback at that number 2 spot. I want to get a little specific with you. Do you think they will attempt to jump up to that number 1 spot and try to get Caleb Williams, who is kind of the talk of the town right now?
I'd be stunned if they haven't already or don't in the near future make a call to Chicago and say, hey, what do you guys want for the number 1 pick for us to move up from 2 to 1? That's just basic doing your due diligence. I'd be surprised if they didn't even attempt to just make a phone call. Honestly, at this stage, I'd still be surprised if they actually made that move, because even though Caleb Williams is basically the consensus favorite as the best quarterback in the draft and the consensus choice to go number 1 overall, you still have 2 really good options sitting there at number 2 in terms of Drake May from North Carolina and Jaden Daniels from LSU. So it's all just a matter of what the coaching staff wants, Cliff Kingsbury wants, and what Adam Peters views as the best quarterback in the draft, and what the scouts. It's all a matter of what they think. I think right now it's just the safest bet to say that they will stay at number 2 and then take a quarterback there. I think it'll be Drake May from North Carolina, but that is also, I'm going to give myself permission to change my mind for the next 2 months.
Let's swap over to the Nats really quick, because you are my Nats guy. They're all down in Florida now at this point, and this is going to be, I think, pretty much an interesting team that we can all kind of expect this year. I think it's safe to say they are trending in a direction that was, I guess, great for a team that is currently in a rebuild. But for those who maybe don't know what to expect from this team this year, what can you tell us?
So for this season, I think it's primarily about watching the young guys in the minor leagues develop their top prospects like the James Wood and, the Dylan Cruz and Robert Hassel III and those types of players, and, Trey Lipscomb, those guys, seeing how Brady House, their first round pick from a few years ago, fresh out of high school, it's imperative that they make a step up this season, whether that's, whether they start out in AA Harrisburg or they start out in AAA Rochester up in New York. It's important that they make a step up and that they also do enough to impress those at the major league level that they get a chance at some point, which I believe probably after the All-Star break, that they get a chance to play in the majors this year and get a little taste of what it's like being a ball player at the very top level. So I think that's the primary focus of this season. And I think next year is probably 1 year from now, maybe 9-10 months from now, when the baseball season's over, is when they'll start to make a splash and actually assemble the roster with the young talent that they already have on the team, and bringing in some help in terms of pitching and hitting from the free agent side, or whether it's from a trade. I feel like that's the time to acquiesce the young talent with some more veteran experience that can actually help out the talent level, and maybe hope that give them a chance at a playoff run in 2025.
Gotcha. Jake, that was the perfect Spark Notes version from start to finish. I appreciate you, my friend. That was awesome. Jake Russell joining us from the Washington Post. Jake, as always, thank you so much. We appreciate having you on.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.